Do you ever watch or play a match of Street Fighter 6 and you're watching someone do a combo into a level 3 or critical art and oh my god, that killed? This feels like it happens far more often in this game compared to the other modern Capcom fighting games, and that's because Street Fighter 6 have the best supers in the modern series. And oh my god, why does the raging demon leave you lying down like this? Hi, this is Mura, and today we're gonna take a look at why Street Fighter 6 have the strongest supers. And to know that, we have to go back to the beginning of the modern Capcom fighting game, Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 4 introduced us to these big cinematic supers as the Ultra combos, and they were tied to your revenge gauge. At 50% revenge, your ultra would be ready and it would get more powerful the more revenge gauge you have, and revenge gauge increased the more you take damage. So it's kind of a similar concept to Street Fighter 6 with the critical arts and level 3. And a fully loaded ultra combo would actually do massive damage, so in concept ultra combos seemed extremely strong. You have to remember as well that the ultra combos didn't carry over between rounds, so you were never at a position where you would maybe not use your ultra combo and save it for the next round, so that's a huge bonus. They were also not tied to your super art meter at all, so you never had to waste like your ultra because you wanted to use an EX move. All of that sounds great, but why weren't ultras, at least by the final version, why weren't they that insane? And the answer is simple: accessibility. You see, with Street Fighter 4, Capcom decided to go with a very interesting design choice. You can't cancel into your ultra combo, right? So you can't use a special into ultra, you can't use a normal into ultra. Yes, there were cases, very unique cases, like for example Ibuki, who was able to like cancel a normal into a super jump and then cancel that super jump into ultra, but these cases were far and few between. For the most part, you don't get a cancel into ultra. This means that if you wanted to combo into them, you either had to get a lane combo or a juggle combo. And this heavily restricted the access to these moves because a lot of it would rely on the juggle properties of these attacks. For example, Ryu Ultra 2, right? You couldn't uppercut FADC into it and get the full animation. You had to use the EX uppercut to start the juggle. Ken kind of had a weird case as well, where he could go for a heavy punch DB, FADC Ultra, but he doesn't get the animation. But if he got a counter hit heavy punch DB, then he does. So you were never, for the most cases, getting like the full damage. Obviously depended on the character, but it was hard to get the full potential out of your ultra combo. And even then, if you wanted to be in a position where you are getting the combo, you had to rely on like an FADC, maybe like a specific juggle in the corner, maybe like a specific combo. And in Street Fighter 4, most of the pressure would start from jabs. Most of the combos, people would start them with jabs. And back then there weren't like any scaling, minimum scaling for supers, so the supers would scale a lot. All of this really restricted like how powerful ultras were as a combo tool. For the most part, you would use them as a super powered up reversal that could deal a ton of damage if you happen to get the hit, and they were very obviously unsafe on block, but they never really were like the bookmark, round bookmark that they became in Street Fighter 6. And now enter Street Fighter 5, and with Street Fighter 5, Capcom made some choices to the super moves that were interesting. They wanted to target that accessibility issue, so now these super moves you can cancel into them from regular moves, normals. You can even like special to super cancel, and in general like the combos were much easier to execute than they were in Street Fighter 4, so these moves now became much more accessible than they have ever been, and they wanted them to feel powerful. And to do that, they introduced the minimum combo scaling, meaning that whenever you combo into a super, regardless of how long, regardless of how scaled that combo was, the super will at least do 50% of its damage, and that made them really good tools to bookmark to end rounds because you're always getting good damage on your supers. My, get up, we have to look professional, like you're embarrassing me in front of the viewers. Chun-Li stood there for like a year and she never gave me this much trouble. I mean, If you like the video so far but you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Maybe we will get her to act professional someday. But yeah, that would be appreciated. Now to continue on with the super ultra cinematic combos. However, it was still not as powerful as it was in Street Fighter 6 because there is a lot of things you have to keep into consideration. For starters, the supers were back to being a part of the meter gauge in general, like it was one system. So you had to make a choice. Do I want to spend my meter on EX moves or do I want to keep it for the big cinematic super? And remember, this is a game where they made it so that uppercuts needed to be the EX version to have invincibility. So if you wanted an invincible reversal, you better use your meter. Another huge thing about Street Fighter 5 is the stun meter. Pretty much whenever you landed a stun on your opponent, you are getting a free combo. And super moves didn't interact with the stun gauge, but EX moves would. So maybe you would want to combo into your EX moves, get your opponent stunned because that gave you a free combo. Yes, there was like a huge exception in Ryu's like super art whenever he was in dungeon, the V-Trigger one. And that was on paper like insanely good. Didn't come into play that much, but in theory it was really powerful. So you had to really make choices, and some characters in general had like insanely strong EX moves, so it was a choice that you always had to keep in mind. This made it so that using your supers as a utility in Street Fighter 5 wasn't that common. Most of the time you used it for like big round enders, maybe to shape your opponent, and you have to remember that this is a game where they removed chip damage. The only way to ship at your opponent was with the supers. So they were good, but I don't think they come close to what we have now in Street Fighter 6. And obviously we can't forget just the raw damage on these moves, because in Street Fighter 5 the supers in general did a lot less damage. Supers in that game, the average super did 330, 340 maybe. The average character had 1025 HP, so even like a non-scaled raw super would do about like 32%. A Zangief super did like 39 because it did 400 damage. Compare that to a Zangief like ultra or like a level 3 or a critical art, and you would see like how much damage they are doing in 4 and 6. They're doing a lot more now. That's about like 10-15% increase. And all of this just puts into perspective just how powerful level 3 supers are, and by extension obviously critical arts in Street Fighter 6. If we're talking just raw numbers, the average super in Street Fighter 6 will deal 4k damage. Average character have 10k HP, so it deals 40%. That is compared to the 32 in Street Fighter 5, so that's like a solid 8% increase. I'm talking raw super. And they kept back the minimum damage scaling on these moves. So whenever you're going for a big flashy combo, if you end it with a level 3, you are still at least doing 50% of its damage. So that is very powerful. But it's all of the other stuff around them that makes them feel extremely stronger in this game, not just the numbers. For starters, they are back to not being tied to your EX moves, meaning that you can use a combo with a ton of EX specials and still end it with a level 3 combo, dealing massive damage in the process in general. Now in Street Fighter 6, there is no meter gain scaling, which is a very big deal. It means that it is very possible for characters to build an entire super gauge in a combo. I did something recently in the My Combo guide. You will see it playing in front of you. There's obviously like the Guile loops, the Rashid loops, so characters are building super meter very quickly. Remember when I said that super moves in Street Fighter 5 didn't attack your stun gauge, your opponent's stun gauge, and you didn't get a free combo? Well, they do in Street Fighter 6, because whenever you combo into a level 3, not only are you regenerating drive, the opponent is losing drive as well. And if you put them in a burnout, you can pretty much force a checkmate situation. You will chip at them, hit them with a drive impact, giving you a free combo. So not only are you getting a lot of damage on that super, you are getting a guaranteed checkmate situation afterwards. The vast majority of the level 3 supers in Street Fighter 6 also gives Oki. where the characters will get like a form of pressure afterwards, which wasn't really that common in Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, but now it's a much more commonplace. Again, with the fact that you are dealing drive damage, all of that make it so that these moves now are extremely accessible, extremely powerful, and can swing matches very heavily, and they look amazingly cool. So that's about it for today's video. What are your thoughts? Do you think that super moves level 3s are kind of overtuned in Street Fighter 6? Do you think it's fine? One thing I do have to mention is the fact that now they carry over between rounds, so we're back to the situation of, do I want to spend it? Maybe do I want to keep it? Which is kind of cool. But yeah, they do feel very, very powerful in this game. I will be leaving a link to the Patreon, Discord, Twitter, and Twitch pages in the description. Thank you so much for watching and stay safe.